So we had last week, the intention was to do the Levitical cities and that sort of stuff, and I ran out of time, so I sawed it off. So I looked at doing that second part of it today, and what I figured is when I looked at it just doing the second part, we really have kind of, when we're looking at the sanctuary cities, the cities of refuge, if you will, and the Levitical cities, we really have the institution of a kind of government that was different. And some of these things that we think about it, we don't, when we look at what we see in the Old Testament, what we see with the Levitical cities, what we see here, this government that God is instituting in this land, we don't recognize how revolutionary it is, primarily because through God's grace, we are culturally looking about 2,000 years of history that has been deeply affected by Christ. So we recognize certain things that are going to be happening as mercies and things that we go, oh, governments always do that. We don't recognize how revolutionary they were. That Israel was being set up to be a city on a hill. That their government, or the ordinance of the government of Israel, was something that was different. A good comparison we'll look at here in a second. But so right here, if you open up your Bibles really quick to Yeshua, chapter 20. You know, I just remembering that the letter J is about as old as the King James Version. Isn't that interesting? That's just a little history lesson. English didn't have a J until about the same time that we got the King James Version. And just think it like Joshua and Jesus and Jehovah and all these words that we have to have a J. Trend-setting. Anyway. I don't know why it's in my head. It just popped in my head. And it's on its way down. All right, here we go. Let's go ahead and read. The Lord said to Joshua, there's that J again. Now tell the Israelites to designate cities of refuge as I instructed Moses. Anyone who kills another person accidentally and unintentionally can run to one of these cities. They will be a place of refuge from relatives seeking revenge for the person who was killed. We don't recognize how revolutionary this kind of thing was. Again, because we have been affected by the mercy of Christ, which is great. By the way, and it's a great thing. The great thing is that God's grace is such that one righteous king impacts generations. That all we need is just a few people in our history to be pointing toward Jesus, and it greatly affects and it casts a long shadow. And that's really one of the things that we just have been so blessed by that. So what God does is he sets up with Israel, he sets up a different kind of blessing. Now, I mention this because if we were the original audience, the first people that heard from Joshua and heard this, they were going to be hearing, oh my gosh, this is revolutionary. Did anybody else have anything like a city of refuge? No. No. And we do know the code of laws that were around because we have records of them. We know the pillars of Hammurabi and what the rules were. We know the eye for eye retributive justice. We know that that's how things work. Even in the Noahic covenant, like I said, Noah, right? To Noah, it said if man sheds another man's blood, that man's blood must be shed. That's it. That's the Noahic covenant. That's the rules. Death is so serious, it has to be punished. That's the sense. Now, this right here, God is showing within the structure of that bloodshed, he's creating a place for unintentional death because of his mercy. So we see that there's already something new. Now, we kind of think, oh, well, this is kind of like, if I'm an outlaw and I rustle some cattle, or if I, shoot a man in a gunfight, or if I rob a bank and I run for Mexico, right? That's kind of the Old West. You guys don't think like that? The run for the border? No. That's not what this is. This is something else. Maybe it's something like Quasimodo's sanctuary, right, in the Hunchback of Notre Dame thing. So that's the sense. That's really kind of what we get. But because we go, oh, well, you could always go to church and hide, or you could always do that. No, this is a new thing. This is something that's totally different. Because in the ancient world, if somebody comes into your city and you hide them, you are an accessory to the crime and guilty of the same punishment. Does that make sense? Them's the rules. If you harbor a felon, then you are a felon. That's how the rest of the world works. And that's how, because the strength moves with the government, the power goes with the government, the mighty hand of the government. If anything else would be rebellion. That's the sense of it. But it says here, it says here something different. And what I was just going to say is now, when he's describing this, he's not saying, I am giving to you a different kind of government here. He's not saying that here. He says it earlier in the Torah, but here we just see the execution of it. So we see it in the narrative as they're establishing it. But it's a fulfillment of his idea when he says, when you go into the land, you're going to do things different than other nations. That's what Moses outlined to him, right? He says, you're not going to have a king because I'm your king. And then he says, but eventually you guys are going to go, I don't want a king. And when you get a king, he's going to want to multiply horses and women, right? He's going to want to have a lot of wives. He's going to want to have a lot of horses. He's going to make himself wealthy on your back. But he ought not, because he's supposed to be different. That's the idea. Well, the other place that you see that Israel was supposed to be different is what it says about government in the New Testament. In the New Testament, we get the idea of why God has government. So Romans chapter 13 is where he says, hey, listen, everybody must submit to the authorities, for all authority comes from God. For those in positions of authority were placed there by God. So anyone who rebels against authority is rebelling against what God has instituted. They will be punished. The authorities do not strike fear for people who are doing right, but for those who are doing wrong. Would you live in fear would you like to live without fear of the authorities? Then do what is right? And they'll honor you. This is a broad idea. Governments broadly are supposed to be doing good work. That's generally what they do. That's the reason that God instituted. As a matter of fact, this one, it says, the authority are God's servants sent for your good, right? Sent for good. Now, do they function right? Not always. So while he's broadly saying this is why God allows governments is because there was a good purpose, right? They are God's servants sent for the very purpose of punishing those who are doing wrong. That there's an order to what he has out there. That those authorities have been sometimes pushed in the wrong direction, right? We know that historically. We know that. Yes.
There's a lamp left on right there.
Ooh.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to put that on.
Shining right in the eyeballs.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
You are welcome. So that's the intention. Now, in practice, so while he's giving a general truth about governments, not all governments are right, which is one of the reasons why God was saying to the Israelites, you're going to be different when you go in the land, because you're going to show what the government's supposed to look like. Right? That's how it's supposed to be. Which is how come throughout the rest of the Old Testament, when they fail, God is like so mad at the way that they're abusing the foreigner among them, that they're abusing these things, because he's like, listen, you're supposed to be different. Right? You're supposed to show why God had government. In a sense, there's that sense where everybody kind of went out and after the Table of Nations and they all divided out, that some of those nations look more or less good. They respond differently, but that's the nature of humanity, right? That we sometimes pollute it with our own desires and us. So here's here's a picture, and I'll just use it because it's such a stark picture, such a hard one. So, Nazi Germany. In Nazi Germany, the police rounded up Jews and they hunted murderers. So you see that there's elements that they did that were good, because it's kind of reminiscent of what a government's supposed to do. But then there's things that they did that were evil. Right? The same sort of thing that these governments, when we're talking about this, and when Paul is writing this about to the Roman church, he's writing it to them. So, do they make sure that bandits don't rob innocent people on the street, the Roman government? Absolutely, very good. Did the Roman government also say, kneel down to the Roman God or else we'll kill you? And they disobeyed there. So there's a sense of this. So now flowing back to what's happening in Judah is God is instituting a different rule set for the Israelites that's different than the way the Canaanites live, so that the rest of the world will see. I don't know if it's a good comparison, but I'll use it just because historically we've got a really interesting comparison. Historically, the foundation of America and the foundation of the French Republic are very close. Like, we copied some of their documents, they copied some of our documents, that there were some similarities that happened, but both of them had wildly different trajectories. I don't know, do you know the trajectories of the... Yes, yeah, thank you.
I know.
My son knows. So, sometimes when people talk about the foundation of America, they're like, oh, America was a great experiment where we just decided to do things differently because we wanted to do things differently. That it was a democratic idea. But it wasn't. The French Revolution was. The French Revolution was an idea that we can figure out our own way because we want to do things differently. So if it's the will of the people, then we'll do it. So it was a legitimate democratic revolution. But what they got rid of was, not only did they get rid of, so not only was it the will of the people, it was divorced from God. So the first secular republic, the real secular republic, was France. Which is how come it's not only kings that they behead, but it's clergy. They rounded up the priests, and they cut off their heads, and the nuns, and they cut off their heads. Because they said, we will do what we want to do, so it's a function of us. So that's the direction that Rousseau and the French went. That's not the direction that the Founding Fathers went. They did what Romans, they're basing it off of Romans, the idea that government has a role. So when you get to like the Declaration of Independence, or like, God instituted these governments. So if a government divides itself, it's because something happened so that the author, the creator of nature, nature's God, says this can happen, right? Because the government is not functioning as Romans 13 says, for the good. That's what they say. So when you get to, that's the first paragraph, that's the opening paragraph of the Declaration of Independence. But then when we say it at the beginning, right? We hold these truths to be that all men are created equal. Who are they created? By God. And they're endowed by their creator certain rights. So the idea of the governance of the United States was supposed to be an outflowing of that Romans chapter 13. It was kind of an application of Romans 13. So we're not a secular republic. We're a government that was supposed to be ordained to protect the rights that were given by God. So we're trying to be that. We're trying to be that city on the hill. Now, of course, I would not say failing miserably. I would not, honestly, because we're different. And the good thing is that holy people cast a long shadow. If you look at the difference of a generation in America and a generation, we didn't have purges where we were beheading people. That there was grace and mercy. But we see kind of that that two things. So the idea of the city on the hill, the Great American Experiment was not a we're going to do things differently because we want to. We were trying to do a more perfect union following God, which is why, like, even in the I think it's interesting, just hit this one little horse a little bit. The Ninth Amendment is so important because the Ninth Amendment is just a reminder that the rights that we have aren't given, they aren't enumerated by the government. They're granted by God. So if a right's not in the Bill of Rights, or the right isn't listed here, doesn't mean you don't have it, because God authored it, not us. That's the sense of it. I love that. But that's the sense. So now back to failing. So is there some failure? Yes, there's some failure, but so is with Israel. So Israel was supposed to execute this city on a hill. They were supposed to be this great theological government that shows a different way to live. Now, what we're going to see with the judges is that over time they look more and more like the people that they're amongst. Their government becomes like the other governments. And it's a great loss. Listen, when David steals Bathsheba and murders somebody, there is nothing wrong with it as a king in that time. They'd say, well, of course, if he wants the woman, he should take the woman. Because he's the sovereign. He gets to do what he wants to do. Sovereign means he gets to choose what he wants to do. He is the one person that has the right to choose. That's what the world's governments say. If he has the power, he can do whatever he wants to. That's the sense of it. But the problem for David is the fact that David is not supposed to be a sovereign. It's not supposed to be a king. So that's why it's a failure.
That's the way Trump wants it.
What's that?
That's the way Trump wants it to be for him.
But potentially, there is some concern that you could say, or the other side that you say.
They're whacking on the Second Amendment right now.
You come back here. There's also the sense that they're supposed to punish wrong. So there's a question of what's his limit? Is his limit? And it's a good question. These are good questions. So when we look here, when we look at this idea of moving forward, there's a sense that they were called to do something slightly different. So right here, we'll just come back to the city of refuge. What's so foundational or important? Upon reaching one of these cities, the one who caused the death will appear before the elders of the city gate and present their case. They must allow him to enter the city and give him a place to live among their people. There's a sense that they must be hospitable to these people that come in there, even though it's going to have a cost to them. However, there is a process, isn't there? You don't just to go flee there. I murdered somebody and flee there. You still have to be shown. You have to prove that it was an accident. So there's a sense of justice there. But there's also mercy. That both of these, in the complexity of this system, is it going to be a perfect system? Is it going to get everything right 100% of the time? No. But it's created in such a system that there's a certain amount of process that allows for grace and mercy to be lived out. And that's the sense of it. So he's establishing the government here like that. If the relatives of the victim come to avenge the killing, the leaders must not release the slayer to them, for he killed the other person unintentionally and without previous hostility. So here's the condition now you have to know. For him to, it has to have not been premeditated for him to be protected. Because intention matters. Intention matters for God. Because God's not calling us it's not a works-based thing. It's something more. It's a change on the heart. Like in a very legalistic structure, the question is, well, did you kill the guy or did you not kill the guy? Well, the guy's dead and he wasn't dead before, so I killed it. That's legalism. Habeas corpus. Show us the body. Here's the body. He's dead. You're alive, he's dead, you're guilty. Right? They're looking to get past that. They're looking to go, well, was it an accident? Was it? So there's within this system of government is this idea of mercy and grace. And the other one is that there's risk. And this is one of those places where sometimes, like with so many other things, there's places where the government that God is instituting here is similar to governments around, like murder. They don't like murder. Nobody likes murder. Do you like murder? No. They all like babies. You got babies. I like babies. You know, there's some similarities. But then there's places where it's upside down purposely because it reveals something about God. This mercy reveals something about God.
Not all governments back then did like babies.
That's true.
In certain.
You're right. They like their babies.
Yeah.
There's a sense of it broadly. But you're right. But those are perversions. And that's the sense. So there's a sense where what we do here is we turn around. So this idea of mercy does look like counter to it. So again, all of the other systems, so the Hittites, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, all of them would say, hey, listen, if a slave or if somebody comes in and shows up to your house and you're protecting them, you're guilty. You've now set yourself up in opposition to the authority. You set yourself up in opposition to the tribe. You've gone to war, right? You're guilty by association, right? That's the sense of it. You're an accomplice after the fact. But this is based on that idea that Moses writes down that kind of says, hey, listen, if somebody flees to your house, if a slave flees to your house, you have to protect them. Which was 180 degrees different than the rest of the world. You have to protect them. You have to shelter them. So in a sense, the Torah outlines outlines the command to essentially establish the Underground Railroad is in the Torah. Even if it's going to cause destruction of the city, even if it's going to cause financial ruin of the city because you're resisting powerful people, but you're doing it because that individual person has value. These are the ideas that are underneath it. It's the idea of one law, one justice for all. This is a different kind of idea. Every other system that we have records of, from the Egyptians to the Babylonians, through the Hittite folks to the Uyghurs, the people that are there, what we see is, listen, the king has this set of rules, nobility has this set of rules, the common person has this set of rules, slave has this set of rules. That it's based on how much money you have, it's based on how much, where your position is, that's what defines how the government works toward you. But this is something different. This is saying every human being has a certain dignity, has a certain inalienable right. That's what this is. This is endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Certain rights that you can't get away from because God gave them to you. But the slayer must stay in the city and be tried by the local city, which will render judgment. So by doing that, it keeps it because God is a just God. He creates a system to make sure that, as best they can, they take care of it, which will render judgment. And he must continue to live in that city until the death of the high priest is in office at the time. After that, he is free to return to his hometown, for which he fled. Now, why is that?
No more proof.
What's that?
I just said no more proof.
No more proof. Well, it's remember this kind of the idea of the statute of limitations that comes from the year of Jubilee, that comes from the 7 years. The idea that every 7 years there's a reset and everybody goes back. But the reason for the Jubilees, the reason for the resets, the reason for all of those things is because the most important mission of Israel is to take their space and continue on. As for me and my house will serve the Lord. Our ministry in this area must be completed. That is the most important thing. So even this element of justice is subservient or is underneath the dominant the idea of go forth, subdue the earth. That idea, that major idea. Listen, we talked about it last week. Dan, where was Dan supposed to be? Dan was given the land that was in the west and the southwest. That's where they were, yes, that's what, right there in the Mediterranean. Where? Modern day Gaza Strip. Gath. That's where they were supposed to be. They were supposed to be in that space. But last week, we got to them, they got that space, and what did they say? Too hard. So they went up north to where Gad and Manasseh was. So who took care of Gath?
Philistines. Yeah.
The Philistines come in because there's nobody there.
Doesn't say they were supposed to be like the gate, the fence, the protection. The
They
wall.
were.
And rather than that, they fled interior into the safe space.
So for hundreds of years, the Philistines show up in that area, worshiping foreign gods in the land that was given by Yahweh. Because essentially they closed the door on their church and left. Because it's just too hard. Shoot, economically, historically, all of that kind of continues on, doesn't it? You kind of go to that area right now, and we call that like the Gaza Strip. Not supposed to be the Gaza Strip, it's supposed to be Israel. But the Israelites didn't push out the people at this time, and they don't create that nation that's supposed to be there.
Trump wants to make it into an oasis.
It's a
Potentially, there's
war zone to this day because of it.
it is a war zone to this day because of
It
it.
has pretty much ever since then.
It really has.
Yeah.
Because Dan didn't do what Dan was
Because they
supposed to
weren't
do.
faithful in the beginning. The turmoil has lasted for generations.
Yes. Quick math says 3,400 years. So what are they supposed to do? Well, make the space.
They're claiming it's genocide over there right now.
Some people are, yes. It's,
Because of Netanyahu and the way he's bombing things over there right now.
yeah.
Now he's sending his troops in there.
Which is the only way you have to do it. The reality is, the only humane way to do it is with people. Because the only thing the really only discerning thing is a soldier. I can shoot this person, I don't shoot that person. You have to send somebody in with swords. It's always been the case. And you got to drive evil out.
Throughout human history.
The problem is they haven't driven evil out.
No. Will they ever?
And the idea, maybe, it depends. But the way it's going to look is it's going to look like sending people into the land where there's giants. It's going to look like going where there's iron chariots. It's going to look like taking systems that preach hate and destruction and death and going to war with them. You can't co-locate with the giants. You can't co-locate with the principalities that are in opposition to Yahweh. You have to drive them out.
And that was kind of the overwhelming theme throughout Joshua. Like that's everything that we've been looking at.
That is everything we've been looking at in Joshua, is where they haven't driven it out, it becomes a problem. And we see that there's a sense that they don't do it completely because they only do what's comfortable. Once people start getting mad and once people start saying, oh, you shouldn't do this anymore, once the protest starts happening, they roll back away from doing the right thing. Because it's too uncomfortable. But the reality is, just like what governments are supposed to bring terror to the evil people and protect the good people. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what Israel was supposed to do. Israel's failure is every time that they don't do that, which is how come when we get later on in the Bible, and it gives the report card of the kings, and it says, oh, this king, he did this and he did this, but he did not drive out he did not take down the high places. He didn't cut down the Asherah poles. And you're like, well, religious liberty. No. He's supposed to be making that space clean for Yahweh so that people aren't confused.
And it's easy to kind of gloss over that, but later on then you see the consequences of that.
Absolutely. You see the effects. And you see that it's more than just the geopolitical effects. It's the effects in their houses. Even in their houses, they live like their neighbors. And by the end of Judges, they may have a different sign on the outside of their building, but on the inside of their building, they're doing the same thing that the world is. So that's kind of why when he's setting up a system right here that is supposed to be different, so that when we get a few hundred years later, when we get to Samson, and you're like, oh my gosh, this guy's a good guy? No, he's not. Right?
I can't stand Samson. Still struggle with that one.
Samson?
Yeah.
But that's the point. We're supposed to.
Yeah, I know.
Like this guy that's supposed to do the Nazarite vow, he doesn't do any element of the Nazarite vow except don't cut my hair. That seems like the least important one, right? They're like, well, he lost his power because he cut his hair. No, listen, he lost his power because he didn't follow God. And the truth is, the hair was the last thing, the last bit of obedience he had. He's in complete rebellion with it. So that's what we see. So we see as they're setting up here, they're setting something different. Free to return to his homeland. The reason he has to go back to his homeland because the main issue has to, when we say, as for me and my house will serve the Lord, that means this area that we are responsible for, we will continue this ministry here. It's like us. As for me and my house means we here in northern Michigan, this is our area. We will fight here. We will drive out the demons here. We will fight our the spiritual principalities here. We will continue to evangelize. We'll continue to do that here because this is our space. It's hard. I don't care. They have iron chariots down there. It doesn't matter. You gotta go. But there's giants in the land. It doesn't matter. But those are fortified cities. So what? Your job is to go forward. This is the space that God has allotted you and your family. You and your family, that means my kids. It's more than teaching kids Sunday school. That means they're going to pick up the thing and they're going to have to battle the same giants in the same areas here. Because God's mission here is that important. We continue to spread. So that's the idea here. Continuing on. Now he sets up these cities of sanctuary. You're going to notice the first three are running along the west side, right, of the Jordan, from the river to the sea. From the river to the sea, which belongs to who? Yes, but what people are supposed to be here? Just so you know. So what they're chanting, what people are chanting in college campuses is opposite of what God teaches. You shouldn't be surprised, but there you go. So from the river to the sea right there, that's the land that was outlined for them, and this is important. So here on the west side, I'm sorry, I did already. So you've got Kedesh and Galilee, you've got Shechem and Ephraim, and then you've got Kiriath Arba, which is the city that Caleb cared, right? Hebron. What do you notice about these three places? One's at the and one's at the bottom. Why? So that no matter where you're at, you're going to be close to one of them. Oh, but what if you're on the other side? Well, guess what? They picked 3 on the other side. One's at the top, Golden Heights. One's at the middle, Ramoth Gilead. And one's in Bezer. Don't pay attention to Kiriath Arba. Bezer. Right? Now, there are more people over here. There's 10 tribes over here-ish. There's 2.5 tribes-ish here. More people here. So should they have more cities of refuge? No, because it's not about that. It's about geography. It's not about population. It's so that you don't have to run 1,000 miles. Does that make sense? So God places these places out there. That's what what we see. Now, some of these places are going to play, so the earlier one, Shechem is going to play a role in places. Kiriath Arba, Hebron, has showed up with several places. Some of these places are going to play in, so we should remember that. Now, here's the other thing. These cities are going to be run by Levites. If you're in Hebron, Judah people are around here. So if you accidentally kill somebody, you are probably from the tribe of Judah, and the person you accidentally killed is also probably from the tribe of Judah. So when you go to Hebron, Hebron is ruled by the Levites. So there's even a certain amount of impartiality that we see that's kind of designed in the system. If you're up near Shechem, you're going to be a descendant of Joseph, a descendant of Ephraim probably. And you're probably going to have killed another person from Ephraim, because that's how it works. Generally, we don't travel states away and accidentally kill somebody. It's somebody that our ox rolls over. It's somebody that our bull gores. It's somebody that's local to us. So this system is made for that. So God has given these Levite cities for that purpose. On the east side, you see those. We looked at those. These cities were set apart for all Israelites as well as foreigners, slaves, everybody, every station living among them. Anyone who accidentally killed, so anyone means anyone, who killed another person could take refuge in one of these cities. In this way, you could escape from being killed in revenge prior to standing trial before, because it is a nation of laws. It's a nation of rules. But even though it's a nation of rules and laws, it is not only just a lawbreaker, lawgiver system. It's a system of a nation of laws with mercy hardwired in and grace. All right, so that is the cities of refuge. Now we look at the rest of the Levite cities. Then the leaders of the tribes of Levi came to consult with Eleazar, the priest, Joshua, son of Nun, and the leaders of the other tribes of Israel. They came to them at Shiloh in the land of Canaan and said, the Lord commanded Moses to give us towns to live in, pasture lands, or livestock. So by the command of the Lord, the people of Israel gave the Levites the following towns, pasture lands, and their own grants of land. Now, if you notice, this is different. The Levites get towns. These are all towns that they're going to get spread out everywhere. They get towns. The other tribes get regions that are defined by borders. Any idea? Anybody want to guess why? You want to guess? They have different functions. They have different functions. The Levites are going to function as a sense of a glue for the larger nation. Because their role is to be the priesthood. The whole nation was supposed to be priests, but they decided they didn't want to do that. That was too much Jesus for them, right? So what has happened is now the Levites function as a glue. It means that there's no such thing as a Levite accent. Right? So if you're a Levite from Hebron, you're going to speak like the Judah people around you. If you're a Levite from Dan, you're going to speak like the Danites around you. Does that make sense? So then when you go to the tabernacle, you're going to hear every accent. Because the Levites are from all these different areas. Does that make sense? So it becomes unified. That's the sense. The other one, their job is not the same kind of evangelism that their brother's job is. Okay, this is a weakish analogy, but let me make it. Just give you a little bit of rope. It's the idea that my job, my role, is different than your role. So you as a church come in, and then I instruct, and I build up, and I push you guys. But then you guys go to the space that God has given you and you function your spiritual war out there. You come in, I equip you, I edify you, I build you up, I send you out. That's what the Levites do. Does that make sense? They're not the front line of spiritual warfare. The tribe of Judah is. The tribe of Ephraim is. They're the front line. They're the ones that are driving out the demons. They're the ones that are pushing forward. So it's kind of like, and the church almost works very similar. So even though the pastor often gets honor, as Paul would say, that a lot of these positions, they get a lot of attention and a lot of honor, they seem that they're important, but they're not as important as some of the positions that aren't getting honor. Because the reality is it's you guys that spread the gospel. Man, I love revivals. I love the Charlie Kirk Memorial was just amazing to watch the revival element of it. But one of the risks of the revival, one of the risks of the old-fashioned tent meeting, is that it made us think that it was the speaker, it was the Moody's, it was the people that came up and spoke that drove the revival, but it's not. It's not about the speaker, it's about you guys. Because you guys go. And when we think in our own life, it wasn't a great speaker that brought you to Jesus, it was somebody that knew Jesus that pushed. You were in somebody else's territory, and they showed Jesus to you. Does that make sense? So the spiritual battle that freed you from Satan happened outside the church. By you guys. By the members of these tribes that are out here in the space. It wasn't the Levite, it was you guys. You who go and make disciples of all nations. Does that make sense? So that's the design that we're seeing here. I know that's biographical. In the same sense, if we want to move the analogy to warfare. You see all these generals that have like stacks and stacks of medals and all these stars and all that sort of stuff there. Somebody like Patton. Big fan of Patton. Big fan of generals like that. However, as cool as he is, how do I say this? He functioned more like a Levite. So he told people, hey, we're going to go relieve the people in Bastion, right? And he pushes the Third Army up there to relieve the people in Bastogne. However, for the people that were relieved, it wasn't Patton that shot the bad guys in freedom. It was some 19-year-old kid. Does that make sense? That's where the battle's done. It's the privates that move forward. The generals get all the glory, but the war is fought at the privates. Ooh, that doesn't sound right. Corporals. The lower enlisted. The congregation. The congregation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's what's happening here. So the establishment, so you're going to see these cities. And we'll fly through some of these cities. The clans of Gashon, 13 tribes. Let's see, the half tribe of Manasseh. So what we see is one of the interesting things. So Aaron's family, they get the area that's going to be the southern kingdom. And then the next family gets kind of up there, and you're going to see that they're kind of the up area. They kind of set it out there. Those towns are all over the place. Ephraim, Dan, and half tribe of Manasseh is kind of that central area. So they kind of block out the states by tribes. The clan of Gershon was allocated 13 tribes. Ishkar, Asher, Naphtali, and the half tribe of Manasseh and Bashan. So now you're up in the north, which would be like Syria and Lebanon. The clan of Merari was allotted 12 towns from Reuben, Gad, and Zebulun. So that's kind of here. On the other side of the river, so the Israelites obeyed the Lord's command. Moses assigned these towns to pastoralists and Levites. The Israelites gave the following towns to the tribes of Judah and Simeon to the descendants of Aaron, who were members of the Kohathite clan. The tribe of Levi, since the sacred lot fell on them first, Kiriath Arba. We keep seeing that town. Hebron. Now imagine. We're going to talk tithing for a second. I just think it's interesting. My head jumped out. Caleb went up, killed a town full of giants, right? He had three giant armies that he went to battle for. So he took over the town. And then what's he got to do with the town? He's got to give the town to the Levites. Right? Would that make you mad? A little bit. Okay. By the way, Kiriath Arba, we'll come back to it. Here's the reason. It's all about the proper way of viewing things. He gets the land outside, he gives up the city. But he gives up the city because it's not giving up the city, it's that he's entrusted to protect the city. Does that make sense? That it's not a have to, it's a get to. I get to provision, I get to protect. Now, again, we keep getting reminded this city was owned by a foreign god and then it's renamed. Because Caleb's been, again, the example of he is doing battle against principalities. Now, that's his city. That's his son-in-law's city, which also was renamed. Same sort of thing. So his son-in-law is also trusted to protect one of these cities. Beth Hamish, Beth Shemesh. This makes me nervous. Again, another one of those cities with a temple in its name. Anytime you see Beth something, get nervous.
What about Bethlehem?
Yeah, the temple of bread or the house of bread. So we get nervous.
Yeah.
But it is the temple of the bread of life is who it ends up becoming. So there's a sense where we're like,
That's okay.
I see what you did there, God. But makes us nervous, like Bethel. Bethel is the temple of El, but the first El was not the right El. Not Elohim. It was the El that's the god of Baal. So then later they're like, no, it's Elohim. You're like, okay, that works. But we should get nervous, right? We rightly should get nervous when we see these lists. If we read them in the language and we understood the language, it would be like Devil Town. And you're like, maybe we should rename our town if it's called Devil's Town, right? That's a...
Hell, Michigan.
Yeah. First Baptist Hell, Michigan. Doesn't sound like a good... Maybe we should... guys, I got an idea. From the tribe of Benjamin, priests were given the following tribes. So you see all these places. The sense of, and I'm just going to fast forward, just you kind of see them how they're spread out. They're spread out everywhere because they kind of hang out there. Now, some of them are densely populated around areas that are densely populated. Does that kind of make sense? Some of these areas are wide open plains or deserts. The rest of the Kohathite clan, the tribe of Levi, was allotted the following ones. So you see Ephraim, you see Shechem, hill country. So cities like Shechem, is Shechem going to play a role in later stories? So we keep seeing, well, it's a town of refuge. It's a town owned by Levites. So we're going to be seeing some of these things. Gezer, Kerazim, Beth Horon. Oh no. Beth Horon, right? That's the problem. The following towns are pasture lands in Dow, Elkith, Gibeah, Gath, all these towns. Half tribe of Manasseh were allotted to towns and pasture lands and priests. Tanakh, you've got Gath Rimmon, these two towns. You also have 10 towns, and the pasture lands are given to the clan, right? So you see the descendants of Gershon. I'm moving fast. Golan in Golan Heights, right, in Bashan. Is a refuge. So you see that among these cities are the cities of refuge as well. From the tribe of Issachar, you see the following lands, all these places. 4 towns there. You've got Asher, they get 4 towns as well. and you're moving forward. From the tribe of Naphtali, you receive the following towns: Kedesh in Galilee, a city of refuge, right, reminding those, Hamath Dor, Kartan. You see all these places that are spread out as you're moving out. The rest of the Levites were in the Merian clan. They were given the towns in Zebulun, right? You got Zebulun, you got Reuben. So we're covering the whole gambit. All the tribes of Gad received the following. This is along the west side of the Jordan, or sorry, the east side of the Jordan River. You've got let's see, all these places. Jazer, 4 towns, 12 tribes in all. Now there's a sense that you get to the end here and you go, the total number of towns in Pasture, the Levites were 48. Why 48? Because that's 12 times 4. So there's a orderedness to it. But then when you see the specifics, some of them got 13, some of them got 12, because some of them are bigger population levels. So there's some adjusting. It's kind of like some states get 3 representatives and some states get 40 representatives, because there's more people, right? It's kind of, that's the sense of it. The cities of refuge are kind of spread out like state senators. There's kind of a geography thing. And then these cities are kind of spread out with population. Like the House of Representatives. I think it's a fun. Maybe it's just me. All right, here you go. So the Lord gave out to Israel all the land that He'd sworn to give His ancestors, and they took possession of it and settled there. And the Lord gave them the rest on every side, just as He solemnly promised to answer ancestors. None of the enemies could stand against them, for the Lord helped them conquer all the enemies. Not a single one of the good promises the Lord had given the family of Israel was left unfulfilled. Everything had been spoken, it came true. The reality is their ministry would be as big as they worked for. It's kind of like your church will be as big as you guys work for. What's that mean? Well, if you keep inviting people, more people will come. If you don't invite people, less people will come. That's the sense of it. There's kind of a, how big is the ministry? It's going to be as big as you make it. Now, unfortunately, they don't. They sit on their tukuses for generations through judges. So, I'm going to run through this really quick. This chapter, just because it's a quick story, but it illustrates that government. So we have a different government. Now, is that different kind of government going to make the right choices all the time? No. But as long as they're trying to do things, God honors the attempt. It's kind of like Romans 13. We talked about Romans 13 as kind of, this is the idealized form of government. But then Romans 14 talks about the idea of a certain amount of grace that we should have. And it shows about the idea of some churches think that you can eat meat, some churches think you don't eat meat, right? And this idea of that there should be charity in some of these issues. So you're going to see that this is what's happened right here, is you see kind of a practical application in chapter 22. So Joseph's a good person. That's not who we're talking about. Joshua, another J name. All right, so here you go. So Joshua calls together those tribes that were on the other side, the east side, right, folks? And they've been doing the war for 5 years. The war's over. Now you can go and take your stuff home. So what he does is he calls them together. He's like, congratulations, you did everything that Moses asked you to do. It's time for you guys to go back to your families. But as he's giving them a blessing, he said, be very careful to obey the commands and instructions, the Torah. Take the Bible with you. Obey the Bible. What's that mean? Well, the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, He is one, right? You must love the Lord with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, right? So, love the Lord your God, walk in all His ways, obey His commands, hold firmly to Him, and serve Him with all your heart and with your soul. So He's doing. He's telling them what to do. Go be good believers. Go followers, right? So He sends them on their way. So they leave, right? And they take with them all the money that they have, and they have the silver, the gold, the bronze, the iron, and a large supply of clothing. Now, it's just me. I'm not saying anything. For me, I get nervous. Because remember Achan, the guy that took the wrong things from Jericho? And he had them buried in his tent. What did he have?
Those things.
He had those things. I'm not saying that it's bad. I am saying that I'm nervous. I would say this is like the little light that shows up, and I'm like, oh, do I need an oil change or is my engine burning up, right? I'm like, not sure. Not sure if this is the normal light or the scary light, right? But that's what shows up to me. So the men of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh left the rest of Israel at Shiloh, the center of Canaan, right? And they start heading east, back to the land of Gilead, the territory that belonged to them according to Moses. But, ooh, I hate buts. In narratives, I hate a but because it's like all of a sudden somebody turned and you're like, oh, is this good, right? Is this a good one? Of course, I'm there, right there with the Kaharchets. But God is a great one. But this is not that. This is but the Reubenites. And you're like, no. But while they were still in Canaan, and when they came to a place called Gilead, this is kind of like that first place. It's right next to where they cut off all their foreskins, and they did the hill of the foreskin. Kind of close to it, which is a good place. All right, the Jordan River, the men of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, they stopped and they built an altar, a large altar. Now, in the narrative, we get nervous when we see these altars, don't we? You're like, uh-oh, what are we doing here? Because in the narrative, in the wilderness, how many times has this gone wrong for them? Moses is up on top of the mountain. They build an altar. They make gold statues. They came over fire. This is the God we're representing. Bad, right? Yeah. We see that. We see later on, somebody else is like, oh, I think I should be a priest. I could do it my own way. Okay. Rebellion, bad. Later on, when they're out in the kind of Midian area, and men and women are hooking up with the Midianites, and the Midianites get them to start worshiping Baal. Another problem, right? Fast forward, hasn't happened yet. The Danites are going to do the same thing. They're going to go and build their own altar. Problem. There's another place, that's the first rebellion. When the 10 tribes of Israel rebel and go north, right? Those 10 tribes that go north, one of the first things they do, build 2 altars. So we get at this point and we're a little concerned. Because the one altar you're supposed to have is the one that's at the tabernacle because it unites us to one God. That's the sense of it. The rest of the Israelites heard that the people of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh had built an altar at Gilead and the edge of the land of Canaan at the west side of the Jordan River. So the whole community of Israel gathered to Shiloh to prepare to go to war. They're like, okay, you decided which side you're going to be on. You've got to be driven out of the land too. Now, here is the execution of this different kind of government. First, however, they sent a delegation led by who? Phineas. Why? Because he's the Levite, and the Levites are the glue. You also have, to go talk to him, you also have representatives of the rest of the tribes. But Phineas is in charge because there's this idea that we're a nation of priests, that there's this connectedness that's moving forward. So they go up there, and when they show up, they go, hey, why are you betraying the God of Israel? As we're coming up here, we kind of saw that altar, as we're not supposed to do that. It's a big no-no. So they bring that up. You built an altar for yourselves in a rebellion against him. And then he goes, hey, wasn't this sin in Peor, where we started worshiping Baal, bad enough for you? And what's interesting is they're in Gilgal now. They're in the wilderness area that they've been wandering in. So it's almost like they could go, hey, remember when we were over at that hilltop right over there? And we did dumb stuff? This looks a lot like that dumb stuff. He says, to this day, we're not fully cleansed of it, right? If you rebel against the Lord today, he will be angry at us tomorrow. Why? Because it matters. It's the reason that churches, we can't just bury something. If something bad happens, like one of the worst things a church could do is hide something bad and put it away and say, well, we just don't want the rest of the world to know it. We have to deal with it. That's what they're doing. They're like, because we have to be different. That's the sense of what's happening here. So, and he makes this point, if you need an altar because the land is defiled, join us on the other side. Remember, it was your choice to live on this side and not in the promised land. If it's too far for you to drive to church, move closer. I mean this.
What are you saying?
No, we're not moving.
It must not be too far.
It's not too hard. It's not too far for us. But that's kind of what he's saying. He's suggesting this idea that this barrier, this split. Hey, what are you trying to do here? Didn't the anger? And he reminds us to Achan, and that's the line where I go, oh, that's Achan. Achan had gold, silver, iron. Oh, it'll come up again. We'll look at it next week. We'll talk about that second. But stealing the things that were set apart to be destroyed by God, you were taking it. But he's just reminding them the idea that purity was important. Purity matters. Then the people of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh, they turn, and what they do is they throw the mercy on the floor. They say, the Lord, the mighty God of Israel, that our intent was not to be in rebellion. They're like, listen, we didn't do it. We did build it, but we didn't have that intention. If we had done it this way, don't spare our lives. Go ahead and kill us. They throw their mercy on the court. If you build this altar for ourselves to turn away from the Lord or offer burnt offerings, grain offerings, may the Lord himself punish us. Now, they make the point that they didn't burn anything. They didn't kill anything on the altar. They just made it as a memorial. Kind of like the ark in the south. We just built an ark so people could see what the ark looked like. That's their case. How strong of a case is it? I don't know. It's a little weak. It's a little weak sauce case for me. An argument could be made that they make it in the land of Benjamin and Judah, so you could say, well, if they made it on the west side, so they weren't really intending to use it, that it was a memorial maybe, but it is weak sauce. And I think that probably there's a mix. Just like so many cases in law, people are a little bit guilty and a little bit, there's a little bit of mix of motives and mix of this. And when they go to plead their case, sometimes their cases are a little bit, well, fibbed a little bit. But the sense of the justice is that's why, just like the reason that the person that slays somebody comes to the town, they have to plead their case, and then the town decides. So that's what Phineas does. So he goes, the truth that we fear, so this is what they say. They said, the reason we did it is we were afraid of your descendants, not our descendants. We're afraid that your descendants would not let us come and worship because we were from the wrong side of the lake, or from wrong side of the river. Which is why we put it on your case. Is it possible that that's true? It's possible, but you know what? It doesn't matter so much in this execution. What matters is why Phineas makes his decision. So they're making their case here. They say it was a reminder to us so that future generations, because they've been building memorials to remind what God has done the whole time. So they're like, this is the biggest one. This is why we did it. And they said, we decided to build the altar not for burnt offerings or sacrifices, but as a memorial to remind the descendants that we are too or worship the Lord. So there's kind of an idea to unify it. So what happens is they make the case that that's why it's there. But when Phineas, the priests and leaders of the community, the heads of the clans of Israel heard this, they were satisfied with that reasoning. Why? Because it gives glory to God. So this is one of those cases where it's kind of like somebody wants to eat meat, somebody doesn't want to eat meat, and they're sitting in trying to figure out what the right thing to do. And they're like, well, you're saying it in a way to bring God glory. We want to bring God glory, so we're going to side. So there's a sense that probably the letter of the law, they should have killed him. But they're looking here, they're like, I don't know if your intention, so they're judging from intention. So you're seeing that executed. And God blesses them in this. The war doesn't happen. But we see this instrument of the government trying to do the right thing. So God kind of blesses it, even though it's humans with mixed motives and mixed emotions. So that's kind of the practical application of the city on the hill. Historically, it's the idea that we look at the American government. Does the American government do everything right? No. Are there ideas behind that we really want to strive to do right?
Yes.
So there's a sense where that is God does kind of bless that. Romans chapter 14. The idea of if we're trying to do these things to bring glory and honor to God, then God has a certain amount of grace hardwired in. So that's kind of what we see as we move forward. Does that make sense? All right, I know I went long, but I just kind of wanted to show the practical application tied to this. Next week, we're going to start dealing into the houses, and we're going to find out that way on the national scale, they're making these kind of decisions, but there's some problems in people's individual tents that we're going to get to next week. Stay tuned for for Joshua, chapter 23 and 24. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for today. We ask that as we've been called to be your representatives, not only in the way that we live our homes, but even the way that our government happens, where we know that all of these things are meant to be something that is an agent of good in this world. Lord, we pray that you guide us in the best way to move forward, that you help us make the right choices as we go forward, and be merciful and be gracious, but always with an eye toward the things that bring glory and honor to you, just like Phineas. Lord, help us be courageous like Caleb and generous like Caleb, and help us just lean forward and take our areas that we've been given with the courage that's willing to speak truth in difficult situations, even to the risk of our lives, Lord, so that we can take those areas that you have assigned us. Lord, we thank you. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. As you head out, I pray the number 6 blessing. I pray the Lord bless you and keep you. I pray that he makes his face to shine upon you, that he's gracious to you, and that he grants you peace. Amen. All right, guys, I will see you next week, Lord willing.